Joining us now, she's in her second year as head coach at Arizona State. Prior to that, was head coach at Ball State. Of course, was a great player and All-American at Notre Dame at her time. I speak of our good friend who's got a heck of a backdrop, Megan Bartlett, joining us here and In the Circle. That's what I'm talking about. I can relate to that backdrop this time of year.
Yeah, certainly no complaints about the weather in Arizona. Not this time of year. So,
Oh, I
yeah,
would say
thank you
so.
for having me.
I know it's become our tradition. We've had you on now. Like I think it's your fourth straight year you've been on. It's good.
Yeah.
It's been fun. What my first question, you were last year. What was it like taking over the program? What'd you learn about yourself as a head coach after now 1 year back as the head coach at Arizona State that you'll take to your second year?
Well, I certainly feel blessed and grateful, and the people that, I'm in the trenches with every single day. So, um, I think that's probably been, whether that's luck or skill or somewhere in between, kind of been the strength of my coaching career. I put the absolute smartest, most hardworking, incredible people around me, and let them go. So certainly really grateful for them. Really happy with the progress we've made actually, in this kind of first year, right? First cycle heading into year two. It's been a ton of work, and the Pack is an incredible conference, and it will certainly be a dogfight again this spring. But what did I learn? I think probably to enjoy some of the small victories, and keep building relationships and do right by people even when it's tough. And because that's really who I am and the people I surround myself with and who we are and what we're about.
How are you a different head coach today than you were when you were at Ball State?
I think I'm a little bit more calm, maybe. I think that this interesting combination of doing this crazy job and the pace we work at, and now, being a mom of a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, I think you find some grace and some patience, and you learn to ask for help a little bit more when you need it. But really, I don't know that a ton has changed. Certainly the demands of the level, are a little bit crazier. And now we have the transfer portal, which really, quite honestly, has, I think, blown the amount of hours you work through the roof. So we work hard, but the foundation of the program and the values of myself and my staff have stayed the same. The softball a little bit tougher, margins a little bit smaller, games a little bit quicker, but the human element certainly pretty much the same.
Well, you mentioned we talked about it last year when you took over the job that, there was a lot to do. Obviously, the roster was a big turnover with players departing, but you bringing in players because of the transfer portal. That was a game changer that has changed the whole landscape of college athletics. And you said that you were in the process of that. What has that been like adapting to the transfer portal era where not only, because it used to be when you were like at Ball State, you were building teams, it was all about recruiting, about that signing class and building towards time. But now you have a transfer portal and as well still recruiting. So you're balancing a lot of things, not to mention athletes today that have NIL and things like that. How have you have adapted to all of that responsibility, which is a handful. It's not that didn't exist when you got into coaching.
Yeah. Well, I think the longer you do this job, certainly one thing you have to do is when you speak to people and get a sense of their values and who they are, and their energy, is it going to fit and is it going to work in your program? And I think that's a skill you have to hone pretty quickly, in coaching these days, because the reality of those transfer windows and those decisions, um, they happen quick, right? And you don't have the luxury of watching somebody for years and years or months and getting to know their coaches. And we can't talk to the kids right until September 1 of their junior year, but you can certainly be in the presence, right? Just being naturally out at the ballpark and watching them and being around their families and seeing how they interact with mom and dad and coach. And you in the transfer, portal process, you don't have that luxury. You're trying to just talk to as many mutual kind of associations as you can and their previous coaching staffs, and having to make really quick decisions. And so far so good, certainly. But that is certainly kudos to the wonderful Jimmy Colitis.
Yeah, Jimmy, your
You know,
assistant there. Yeah.
yes,
You look at your
incredible.
roster this year. It's about a 50-50, 50% return, 50% are brand new, whether it be freshmen or transfers. What's it as the key as a staff to build that camaraderie, that chemistry when you have half your roster is brand new, but you have half returning? What's that been like in the fall?
Yeah, we have a really good group of kids. I will tell you, they are the value system, I think, just lined up really, really well with us and them and each other and their families. But I think really just getting them to kind of relax a little bit, communicate, and kind of create that, I think, easiness, enjoyment. Finding their commonalities is one of the first things we try to do. Like, we're all here because they're amazing at softball and we love what we do, but it's bigger than that. Like, how do you get them to connect on kind of a personal level quickly? I At least for me, I think a big piece of that is it's how they interact with the staff too, right? Like, we are certainly a collection, I think, of players, coaches. There's a lot of, I think, just easiness and genuine conversation. And, um, they're, we bring them into the fold and they're our family and we love them. And we have welcome back barbecue and we're hanging out here in the backyard. And then, they cook team Thanksgiving, which I think is a really special day and it's a long one. And they're always grumbly when they show up at 9 o'clock in the morning to start cooking. But by the end of the day, just turns into this really cool thing that I think they take a ton of pictures and they hang out all day and there's music going and just a day that I think we can be really super grateful for each other and have some fun. And so we certainly try to be intentional, but that's how our staff communicates and interacts with each other. And if we know anything about young people and children, they are going to emulate the behavior they see, right? So I know that's a constant check-in we have with our staff, right? And each other, just about we're good and valuing and managing those relationships. And then I think the kids naturally, start to value relationships and process in that way. So it's pretty all encompassing, actually.
Let's talk about your offensive side of the ball there, because you got some new faces that are going to contribute offensively. But among the returners, you got Jordan Van Hook coming back, who led you with 19 home runs last year. Talk about her, because she really broke out last year, and what you've seen from her this fall, because I would imagine she's still one of your leaders as far as this team coming back.
She is. She's a woman on a mission. Jordan is strong and talented, and works super hard. Her teammates enjoy her. Like, Jordan, she's just a great kid. She shows up, she loves softball. I mean, she certainly could have gone in the portal and would have had, 150 phone calls in the first 5 seconds. She was there, but she loves being a Sun Devil and she's invested in this program and this staff and, what she can do for her teammates. And, you've heard me say a million times, the Jordans of the world, like, they're just special. Like, when that kid wasn't really getting a shot, she was kind of buried behind a super talented outfield. She was also the best cheerleader and teammate and the most gracious kid on the bench. And every one of her teammates from that era would tell you that. And now that, right, she's leading from the front, and she's kind of the face of the program. You just don't hear a lot of stories like that. I'm just grateful for her, right? And just super proud of her. But Jordan literally she's just a dream. She shows up every day in a good mood and she works hard and she has fun and her teammates enjoy her. So we're certainly excited Jordan's back and we're excited for the year.
Mentioning some players and new faces, Kelsey Hall was a Mountain West Player of the Year at Boise State. I got to see her up close. Tremendous outfielder. Audrey LeClaire, Michigan. I saw her up close. That's kid's a winner. You've added her. You added Tanya Windle of Utah Tech, who was a freshman of the year in her conference playing at Utah Tech. You got among others. I mean, there's a ton. So just talk about a lot of the new faces and what they bring to the table, because you got a great talented transfer class, but also 4 talented freshmen.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. yeah, I don't even, there's so much excitement there. It's like hard to know where to even start. Yeah, Tanya Wendell, we're so excited about. I see her hitting in the top of the lineup. She has got great hand-eye. Again, like it's going to sound cheesy because I feel like every one of these kids, I'm like, they are such good kids. We love them. Tanya's such a good kid. She's so happy to be home. Her parents are like in the front row cheering for everybody, every single fall game. But she is feisty and competitive, and she's just flying all over the place in the outfield. But I think Tanya's got this really kind of special hit ability, and I think is going to do a really nice job in the top of the lineup for us. Kels is just a superstar. Like there's just so many ways Kelsey can help the ball club win. And that's on the field and it's off the field, right? Like Kelsey is just this really cool connector of people, right? Like she's just a very sincere and genuine human, and she just respects the game, right? And she does it the right way. So we're super excited about Kels hitting the middle of the lineup, and we'll just kind of let her go. Lily Denby, from Fresno. She was, I think, the WAC Defensive Player of the Year. Don't get me wrong, Lily is a heck of a shortstop, super sure gloved, great angles, just enough arm to really throw some speedy kids out. So super excited about what she's going to do for us on the defensive side of the ball. But Jimmy has just done some really incredible things with her at the plate. Really kind of worked on her direction. And I think she's going to hit for a really impressive, not only average, but she's got some good juice in that bat too. So we're super excited about Lily. My goodness, I feel like
You got Leclaire from
oh my
Michigan.
gosh, Audrey, you're right. You hit the nail on the head with her. Like you're like, Leclaire's a winner. She is feisty and she is fearless. And she gets after it and she battles and she works. That kid's work ethic is insane. So like even when softball ends, I'm like, whatever, she's going to do something in sports. And right now she's actually training full-time and interning with the Phoenix Suns.
Woo.
Honestly, like Audrey's just a little superhuman, right? Like she's the one like keeping the team organized over break, and she's the first person to like get in there, and like she's like in the middle of a dog pile, like so excited when something cool happens. And I mean, certainly we knew getting her from the coaching staff at Michigan, she was going to be well trained and a hard worker, and just certainly a kid of high character. But how spicy and competitive and how she plays with such like just cool emotion. That was a bit of just like a pleasant surprise. She's going to get after it.
And you got Mackenzie McFarland from Utah State.
Yeah. Amazing kid. Literally. Mackenzie McFarland is just, I don't think I can say enough good things about her. Same thing, like super hardworking, grinds in the cage. Teammates love her. We have got this clubhouse that I think it actually happened a little bit quicker than I even thought it was going to, but I think the camaraderie and the closeness in that clubhouse is something that's going to make everybody better. It elevates everybody. Not one or two, and they're not, kind of running around in little schools of fish, not interacting with people. But I think like this group will be the foundation and just a really significant part of, what comes next for Arizona State softball.
The freshmen, do you see them contributing right away there? I mean, or do you see how do you envision the lineup? Do you see the experienced players? I mean, how do the freshmen fit in?
Yeah. Well, Miko Lupi, we didn't start there. She throws absolute gas. So she has been so fun to watch because Mika is not only 6 feet tall and upper 60s. Now she's kind of cruising in, right? 69, 70. But it's been so interesting to watch the amount of change, right? She's been able to make with Coach Manley in such a short amount of time. Just trying to get her mechanics repeatable, right? So she's in a place where she can go drop rise change. She kind of throws a cutter that's got natural down tail. She's been working really hard on a changeup. But her mechanics are finally in a place she can turn the ball up a little bit. And I'm like, okay. So right? That's just going to take a little bit of time, I think, when her adrenaline spikes to make it repeatable in a game. But yeah, Mika's such a good kid. She's a, Sacramento area kid, West Coast. So we're really excited about Mika. I think she's going to be fun. Jada Lewis had a bit of an injury in the fall, so we're not quite sure if she's going to be full go for us or if we're going to save her back for a year in red shirt. We're going to see, right, kind of how the next month and a half goes. But she's going to be special. Like, that's a name you're going to remember as she gets older. Next level mentality, left-handed speed player, super physical in the outfield, leaving her feet, diving into the gap. She's, I think, going to do really, whether it starts right now or it starts in a year, I think going to do really special things as a Sun Devil. And then I think Libby Walsh will see some time at second base. She's a super talented middle infielder, from Massachusetts, actually, from the Rhode Island Thunder. Good pop at the plate, and we'll just see how she settles in. She certainly has every bit of the physical tools to play at this level. She's going to have to calm down, breathe, and relax it, just trust it. So sometimes with freshmen, it's like, you don't need to rush the physicality. They're there, they can do all the things. They're just mentality, right? Sometimes it takes some of them a little bit longer than others, but she'll be able to help us. I know. I hope I'm not.
You got a good shot. That's a good. Let me ask you this. Do you feel you have depth this year that, honestly, I think you didn't have last year, which kind of caught up with you at the end of last year? Like the lack of depth caught up with you, especially when you're playing in a league like the Pac-12. That's going to expose itself sooner or later. Do you feel you've got the depth this year?
Yeah, we have more than we had a year ago. And it's different. Like, it's a different ball club. Our pitching staff is talented, and they're a year older, right? So not only those kids came to us a year ago at different ages and different points in their career. But that's the interesting thing about the portal, right? That you get kids from all kinds of different reasons they left, right? So just to get them acclimated to new lingo, new training, things like that. And the pitching staff did a really nice job for us a year ago, but for now them to be another, year settled, they trust Coach Manley, and actually, speaking of that, I think Marissa Schold is a hell of a softball player, and a nationally recognizable name, two-way player, done a really great job on the mound here at Arizona State. I think she's going to have her best year yet. I mean,
she was an unsung hero for you last year. She was really stepped up when it needed.
Yeah. And I think she has just gotten better and better. Some sort of light bulb went off in that kid's brain this summer. She actually rebuilt her motion. And she looks good. I mean, because, Marissa already could bend the ball 4 different ways. She's in a pattern that's, I think, allowing her to load a little bit more organically. But now she can bend the ball those ways. But you watch Marissa now, that it's like, she'll throw a rise ball. It wasn't quite under someone's hands. And she's like, okay, well, I think this is actually going to miss the bat. And she'll put the ball 2 inches higher. Right. And anytime you have a pitcher that not only has that amount of like smarts and presence, but then can make the ball do what they want, right down to inches, right? Up, down, in, out. And then she's still got that absolutely filthy changeup. It's been really, really cool to watch. I've been just super, super proud of her.
Well, you mentioned the pitching staff, so let's talk about it. Obviously, you got Schold, you got Mac Osborne, Kenzie Brown, Kylie McGee. You mentioned the freshman that's coming in. Just talk about your pitching staff as a whole.
Oh, love the pitching staff. They are, I think I told you a year ago, like the kind of subculture, right, of that pitching staff was going to be our strength. It was in our clubhouse, and then it would be heading onto the field, and that certainly that ended up being true. So again, like, it's really the whole staff is back, and we just added Mika, and it's been really cool to watch each of them. Like, Kenzie Brown looks awesome. That's another name. That kid can stay healthy. She's got some wow factor to her, right? That's 69, 70 drop, rise, change. I mean, she can really do some impressive things. Kylie McGee had a great fall. beautiful up ball, great changeup. She's learning a little bit of a dipper, as Jeremy says. So Kylie can certainly keep people guessing at the plate, and she is like, she's just a competitor. Like, the cool part about watching Marissa and Kai, they're not trying to beat people with talent. Like, at some point, like, they're just gritty and locked in, and like, they just have no fear on the mound. They're so fun to watch like that. Yeah, Max got that devastating drop ball. So, she's a woman on a mission at this point, right? That it's the end. Like, she's going to go on to med school or nursing school, whatever she's going to do after this. And we're pretty excited about her too. I feel like Marissa, Ken's, Mika, Kylie, Mac.
There. Yeah.
I have one more.
You got 6 arms in total, right? You got 6
Yeah.
arms.
Did I name all 6? Did I talk about all 6?
Yeah, you've talked about all 6 at one point or another. Okay. Do you feel like everybody has a role? Do you think that establishes itself once the season gets going?
Yeah, you know what? I feel like heading this time last year, just based on where they were at developmentally, we had more of an idea of who was going to start, who was going to be a middle reliever, and who was going to close. And really, just the way, like, I think Marissa's kind of trended, that she has now kind of thrown an interesting question mark and all that, because if she's able to throw more, we want to use her as much as we can. Right. Because Marissa spent a lot of time in the closing role. We had so many young ones, new ones, kids that we felt like could get through about once in the lineup, against anybody, but they weren't really ready to handle great lineups 2 times through, let alone the 3rd time through. But I don't know. I don't know that we can only use Riss for 60 innings or so this year. 80 innings. I'd love to use her for more than that. So that'll be the interesting piece, because if Marissa is going to start, then it's obviously going to push somebody else into middle relief. And then we've got to figure out how else is going to close. So yeah, I don't know that the roles are so super defined for this spring, actually. So I'm excited to watch them duke it out.
Well, and you've got another arm. Obviously, you got Deborah Jones.
Tracy, I knew I was missing somebody. Yes,
that was a kid. That was
our
the
resident.
Ball State kid. Yeah.
Yes, our resident knuckleballer.
Knuckleball pitcher. Yes, I remember hearing about this.
Yeah, bigger hands than Jeremy, which is actually fascinating. She's very tall and very long. But yeah, DJ will spend some time in that middle relief role, certainly. Knuckleball, changeup, cutter, drop ball. She can spin it up even. We can't use that a ton because we don't want to blow her old grandma arm off at this point. Her UCL does certainly not love the rise, but she throws a pretty good one. So, DJ, same thing, kind of battled some injuries this fall. She'll be back ready to go this spring. But somebody that her teammates just rally around. And certainly I think the defense is going to be pretty good this year. That was one thing we knew we had to quickly address. For all the quick investment we had made in the pitching staff, we had to get way better defensively, which we had. So for kids like Deborah and Mika and Mac, who are heavy drop ball, heavy down ballers that are going to roll us a ton of ground balls, because our surface is not easy to field on, right? Like, you need to have elite feet and elite hands if you want to defend and play at Arizona State, especially in our infield. It's so fast. We try and keep it as soft as we can, but we live in the desert. So those kids certainly have their work cut out for them and do great. But
so with that in mind, how much of the defense do you have still battling for spots? Like, obviously, because that's important. I mean, it's not just, hey, let's get our best bats in there. We want to get our best defense as well. There's that mix. So who are some players that you think can contribute or important from a defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, well, we moved Kayla Lissy to third base, which I'm really excited about. She is one of the twitchier kids I think I've ever coached, right? So everything is just sharp, quick, fast movements, which will get you in trouble, right? At the middle infield more often than not. So to watch her transition to third, she's going to do some really, really cool things. She gets in there, she gets her nose on the ball. And she's kind of like watching, Keanu Reeves from The Matrix play over there. So pretty excited about I think what Lissy's going to do. Sarah Kinch is going to do a ton of catching for us behind the plate, and she's got one of the more accurate arms I think I've seen in a long time. Sarah does a really nice job defensively back there. And then we're going to see, like, Jordan's going to play first for us. She does a really nice job actually defensively. No issues there. Second base is going to be a battle. And really, I think left field right now is going to be a bit of a battle. We'll see who comes back off of injury and who doesn't. But we've got a couple kids that I think they're going to be young, and I know there'll be some growing pains there. But Tanya Wendell and Jada Lewis, and really Yanixa, the little Acuna, she just keeps getting better and better and better, which is so interesting because that's really kind of how Yanni, her older sister, who was an All-American for us, that's really how Yanni's career profiled. So it's been pretty fun to watch Nixa get in there and start to grind it out. But she's working really hard on both sides of the ball. So she'll, I think, see some time for us too.
I was going to ask you about the Acuñas there. You got one on the grad assistant, then the one on the roster. What is that dynamic like with the two of them? How are they similar? How are they different?
Oh, goodness. Yanixa is your prototypical middle child. She is a rebel. She is funny. She's like just a cool customer, right? Like a cool cucumber all the time. And Yanni is your prototypical oldest child, right? Like, works super hard, but she is very type A, right? Bit of a perfectionist, can people please a little bit. So, while they are certainly sisters and their bond is really, really cool, right? Like, they love each other. But they're totally different people. I love them both. I love them both dearly. They're like my kids' two favorite babysitters, right? Like, they love Yanni and Yaya, but yeah, they're really, really different, actually.
You mentioned your pitchers and all the different variety that they throw. So you have a lot of different style pitchers. How does that affect your catching situation? Do you the type that wants to have certain catchers catch certain pitchers? Do you just how do you see the catching position? Because that's important when it comes to the pitching success as well, and having that trust and that they can handle certain pitches that certain pitchers throw.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. So Coach K, he loves coaching the catchers, right? It's aside from his many, million things he does for us here. He will not give up coaching those catchers, but that's something he talks about all the time, right? That you have to be like kind of that connection, right? Like that sense of security with your pitcher. He's like, you need to be, and he'll tell all of them, like, you need to be the person they want behind the plate. Right. And so I think it's going to get interesting because Mackenzie McFarland's got wonderful veteran experience. And Sam Swan, our little freshman catcher, she is a great athlete, right? Accurate arm. But Sammy does a really nice job. I think a product of, she caught our committed pitcher who's on the Texas Bombers, who's a senior in high school, who just, Cambry Krieger, who just signed her NLI. And Cambry is a heavy down ball kid, right? It's Kat Osterman's her pitching coach, and she's just got this beautiful, sharp down tick to her ball. So Sam is great with a drop ball, right? Because while Sarah's probably 5'11", Sam's probably closer to like 5'5", 5'6". So she can really get underneath that drop ball and pick it low to high. She's a strong kid. So that piece will be really interesting. I think like we know Sarah, I think, has proven herself in the program. And honestly, she really came along with the bat this fall, which we were really happy with. So we certainly know Sarah is going to get a ton of time back there, but she can't catch 65 plus games back there. Like, that's just, she's a senior, and hips and knees are certainly not going to tolerate quite all of that anymore. So between Sam and Mackenzie, I think it is going to be an interesting battle of who's going to start to push in for some of those games.
Of the returners, who was the most improved player that took that jump from last year to this year? They're like, oh, look out. This could be a breakout player. This player could have a big role in this team here. Is really seems to have grasped what we've been teaching
Um, that's a good question. I know this is going to sound crazy because she was really good to begin with. Honestly, I think it's Marissa.
Wow.
That is literally how much adjustment that kid has made on the mound. Like, she is absolutely going to carve people apart. It's going to be really, really fun to watch, I think. And then positionally, probably Yaya from the returning group.
Yep.
And she certainly has the luxury of, like, that kid is in the weight room every day in the summer, right? She's here. She's an Arizona kid. She works out with Coach Alosi the entire summer. And then she's got an All-American older sister, right? That can certainly, I think, give her some good guidance as she's training. But we really, of the returners, I think eight of the 11 were here all summer, working out, training. And a big chunk of that was the pitching staff. Right. So that makes sense, right?
Sure.
Because we have the whole pitching staff back. But yeah, they crushed it. They did a really good job.
Let's talk about your coaching staff. Obviously, Jimmy Kalidas, you've mentioned. Obviously, he's on part of your staff. Jeremy Manley runs the pitching. You've added Haley Decker to your staff as part of this third full-time assistant that's passed through the entire sport. First of all, let me ask you your thoughts on the expanding of the staffs in softball. How is that, now that you've got it and the sport has it, how do you feel that has that made, how big of a difference has that made?
Yeah, it's made a big difference. I think the continuity, certainly the consistent other set of hands, because the volunteer coaches are great, but a lot of times they're coming and going and they were trying to make a living, right? Whether they were working another job or having to run off for a lesson. So to have somebody who's has the luxury of just being locked in, right, each and every day, I think it's great for the kids, certainly, right? That it's just not kind of a revolving door position. I certainly feel for our baseball coach. I know on the baseball side, they were hoping that was going to be, we add the fourth assistant, the paid fourth, but then we keep the volunteer position, right? And you keep influxing people into the coaching profession. And I mean, their roster is 10, 15 guys, sometimes larger than that, than ours are. So, but yeah, Haley has just been a tremendous addition to the program, right? She's the defensive coordinator. Such an interesting thing, right? She grew up a Major League Baseball kid. Her dad, I think, caught for the Giants and the Marlins.
Yeah.
So she understands how to systematically teach, right? And systematically break down film. Her dad, Steve, I think, just did such a great job teaching Haley all the things, right? Because he didn't have a son. So as Haley says, I was the son he got.
What
I
a
know it
comment.
happens to the best of us. Me too, Haley. Me too. So she's funny because she's like, I can't believe it. One of the girls said, I've never broke my own film down. And she's like, I've been breaking my own film down since I was 9. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that was like the first thing my dad taught me. So she is young and passionate and energetic and feisty. And just, quickly, I think, just become it was a natural fit. And she's quickly just become, I think, an important part of the energy and the livelihood around here. Haley's she's awesome. She's a rock star. Well, she played for Coach White and Coach K at Oregon. Right. So Haley's actually she spent her first 2 years at Nebraska and then her last 2 years at Oregon. And she went to the World Series with both of those teams. So, tons of great experience there and some good commonality. And, I get to hear all the old stories about Coach and Coach K back in the day.
I'm just feeling old right now because I saw her dad play because I'm a Marlins fan. You know this. He
Oh,
was
yes.
he's part of the inaugural Marlins team in '93 when Charlie Huff was their ace pitcher with the knuckleball. And Chuck Carr and Jeff Conine. Now you got, man, I'm gonna have to meet her now because I have to ask. I mean, I
Gosh,
gotta
yes.
believe they have to be somewhat associated with or at least have talked to Jeff Conine. Obviously, they played with Jeff Conine. Plus, he played with the Giants. I'm also my favorite player with Will Clark, so I think he played with Will Clark. So I'm feeling old now. Thanks, you just made me feel old because that's his
Yeah,
daughter's now on the staff. That is wild. I did
she
not know
is.
that part.
She is, yeah, and she's a rock star. She'll hopefully we can keep her for 2, 3, 4 seasons, and then she'll be off to her head coaching career. And you know, Haley's
Well,
she's the one.
you've got a quiet tree developing yourself there with a lot of coaches that are coaching across the country. I got to meet one of them recently with Becca Mueller's now at UCF, used to be with your staff at Ball State. What is it? Do you keep that in mind when you have somebody on the staff like a Haley Decker that, hey, she has big aspirations like I did at one point in my career to go to either be a full-time assistant, being a head coach, etc. Is that something that's in the back of your mind and maybe you mentor them a little bit as you go at when they're on your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no secrets with the four of us, right? So whatever one of us is dealing with, the four of us are dealing with. So I think anytime you're kind of operating with that transparency, it's easy to kind of walk people as you're kind of just walking through your thought process and how we're going to handle this situation or this kid or something departmentally. As you just communicate well and kind of talk it out, I think um, hopefully she's taking things, with along the way. And Haley's a sponge, right? So anything you tell her, I feel like she's like, it's immediately like her little mind is a vault. Um, so it's just been fun. Yeah. Been super, super blessed in my coaching career, to be around some pretty just great people first, and very good coaches.
How is the expanded staff made mean for you personally? Because you mentioned obviously you got Jimmy running the offense. You got
Mhm.
Jeremy running the pitching staff. You mentioned Haley's kind of running the defense. So does that allow you to be more of a manager role? What give me your philosophy and your style there with this staff now the way it's constructed?
Yeah, certainly. And it's really nice. And then I get to be everybody's assistant. So whatever I feel like doing that day, I can just pop in and check on it and throw my 2 cents in. But yeah, it's certainly trust all of those three implicitly. Every school is a little bit different. And obviously the place we're in just nationwide, not just softball, just athletics in general. I've certainly had to spend a little bit more time with donors and fundraising, and really trying to make sure we're ahead of the game with NIL. And the reality of those things is they take a lot of time and I think effort to do well, because really those are so, if you do them well, they should be relationship based, right? Like I want our donors to not just feel like they're an ATM machine, right? But they're a part of our program and they're connected to it. And we are certainly super, super grateful, right, for their generosity and their help. Um, and we're also have been in the middle of construction. So, the new facility, the kids side of it, will open for opening weekend in February. And then the new build, which will be new coaches' offices, will open in April. But my goodness, I remember Coach White telling me once, right? Because he opened the Jane at Oregon. And then we did that facility. Well, he did the facility build at Texas before I got there, which I think opened right before that first season I was there. And that's a lot of work. Like you are really involved weekly with those construction meetings and you're making different decisions on layout, right? And just a million things, branding and graphics and furniture, lockers. My goodness, the lockers, they're done. They're finally here. So I'm so excited for the kids to see it, and it's going to be beautiful. And it's, I think, a place that the girls are going to be just really, really proud of and want to, just gravitate toward. But that has certainly taken up a lot of time this season. So I will be really happy for that to be done in February.
Big news there, February. Okay, because got the timetable stamped there.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's no secret. This will be the final year of the Pac-12 as we know it. This will be the final year of Arizona State in the Pac-12 before you move to the Big 12.
Mhm.
What's unique about it is you just came from the Big 12 after serving as the assistant at Texas. So you have a unique perspective in that you're familiar with the Big 12, so that might give you an edge. I know we had Paige Parker, the Utah assistant. She said she's familiar with that league, obviously having played there, so there's a bit of a comfort in that regard. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff you can't control, but does it give you comfort in that at least you're going into a league you're familiar with?
Sure. Like, it's all tough. Like, it's all really good softball, right? Top 25 softball it's grind and demanding and all the things. Yes, I think certainly, I think everybody's kind of mourning the end of the pack, whether you coached in it, played in it, or just grew up watching it, right? Because you think about, I don't know, I guess the late 90s and the 2000s when we didn't digest games and we didn't stream games the way we do now. Really, what you got to see on TV at that point was the World Series and kind of those longtime epic showdowns, right, between Sue Enquist and Mike Candrea. And I certainly grew up watching that. So I'm sad about the pack. I mean, I think everybody is. I mean, it's especially in softball. I mean, what an absolutely incredible intro year, right? That was. It was pretty special, but times have changed, and we certainly feel blessed to be a part of the Big 12. I think that conference the commissioner has just got this really forward thinking. He's visionary. So the exciting piece about that and all this incredible change we've had in college athletics in the last 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to be in a conference that it's going to continue to exist, right? And serve and be there. And they're forward thinking and they're staying ahead of trends and they're incredibly organized. So really the Big 12 office, right? Like that conference office, they do a really, really good job. So I have comfort knowing like we are in good hands in the move forward, certainly. So that's, yes, nice that I'm familiar, right, with some of the teams
Yeah.
and
Familiar with some of the cities
level and the
yeah
style of
yeah
play, what's going to work. Because you're right, like what worked in the Big 12 was slightly different than what was going to work in the pack, which, again, the Big 10 ACC would be a little different too. So certainly it helps that we're going to be ahead of the nuances.
Does that affect you with this conference? Will that affect your non-conference schedule moving forward at all? Does it affect it at all?
A little bit. We're certainly going to have to amp up the RPI points a little bit in preseason, right? Because at least last year in the pack and then typically in the SEC, you need to make sure you bulk up a ton of your wins, right? Early on in the season, because you're going to probably, for 95% of teams, you're going to be somewhere give or take 500, right? In your conference schedule, like they're just really tough conferences. And for us, we just have to make sure not only are we getting a fair amount of wins early on, but we need to make sure that we're gaining some RPI points back. So we'll amp up the preseason a little bit. We have the luxury of getting to stay at home, right? We're lucky. We're just certainly blessed in the weather in February and early March. And so we'll stay home, and we're going to, I think, host pretty much the entirety of preseason for a couple years and then see what the transition looks like and kind of just adjust as we go. But certainly feel lucky that we have the luxury of sunshine and an airport that's, huge and 15 minutes away, 10 minutes away. So we'll be able to at least build our schedule out as we need to be able to, postseason.
You mentioned your schedule. Obviously, you're going to be home. You're going to host them. You're going to take advantage, as we see in your backyard. Arizona's a good place to come and play softball in February. You figured that out. Congratulations on that. But still, you got some teams coming in. It's a challenging schedule. Just because you're home does not mean it's an easy schedule. So just talk about your overall non-conference schedule and how you feel it gets you ready for the conference season.
Yeah. I mean, we've got certainly some very good Big 10 teams coming in. some really good mid majors. I mean, GCU is very good. I think they've got what did Shannon tell me? Something like 8 or 10 kids that are in their last year of eligibility. So whether they're seniors or fifth years. So they're very, very veteran, very skilled. Yeah, we added some more midweeks this year, which I think was going to be important. We're in this interesting conundrum kind of geographically that really it's us, U of A and GCU, right? So other places I've coached, I feel like I could throw a stone, right? And hit 3 other schools. We could play midweek. Like I was trying to figure out, because we had so many options, right? What was going to work, kind of the ebb and flow and what conference opponent you were heading into the next weekend to try and build that schedule out. And really we play a home with GCU. And then of course, Arizona's in our conference. So to try and get all the way to 56 games is a little bit of a struggle actually. So more midweeks than we've ever had, some great preseason competition, and then we get on to the pack. So it'll be fun. We'll go fast.
You're opening at home with Wisconsin. You're playing Wisconsin. You got Northwestern opening weekend there. You got Boise State coming in there. You've got BYU coming in later in the season. Virginia Tech's coming in. You got Illinois State's going to be a contender in the MAC. You got Fullerton, who is obviously an NCAA team last year. Coach Ford always does a great job there. At home, you got Texas State. Coach Ricky Woodard has a great team there. That you know very well from your time at Texas, dealing with them. Seton Hall was the Big East champions. You got Ohio State coming in. That is incredible. You got my buddy Jeff Conrad, UNF, who's going to be, I think, a contend in the A-Sun coming into town. You got Omaha, the Summit League champs, JMU, Coach Laporte coming in. I mean, on and on, Coach. Before that's again, not easy.
Yeah, it'll be challenging. But that's where we're at, right? We've got to, if we don't challenge them until we get to the pack, we're going to be in trouble. So we'll take some bumps and bruises early on, certainly. But it'll all be in preparation, right? To win a championship, head into postseason, win a regional. So
it's gonna be fun. Do you all talk to your players about how this is a historic year? This is a year that people are going to be talking about years from now. This is the last year of the Pac-12. Is there any talk, any motivation of let's be known as that team that ended on top in the last year of the Pac-12? Is there any of that, or do you avoid any of that chatter?
Yeah, I certainly, I think in complete disclosure, we try and stay a little bit more tied to the process. Worrying about things that are outside of their control, or right, trying to chase results too far down the road. I don't know that we're quite ready for any of that, right? Like we talk about, you want to be a team that's competing for national championships. Like you have to be the team that is making the sacrifices. You're working the right way. We are talented enough to like you have to be the team that can show up to Oklahoma City every single year. Right. Like riding that thing to glory in one year is a stuff of movies, right? Like there's a lot of grit and grind and things that happen early on behind the scenes, foundations that get laid, clubhouses that start to create, I think, values and standards that can live on, right? And start to create patterns of behavior that get us there. So we are really big process people, our staff, and that's really, we try and chop it up into things that they can put their hands on and control. But certainly we would love that. I mean, the goal is Oklahoma City.
Last thing before we let you go, obviously between now and then the season opener against Wisconsin, you'll get going. What are some questions, some keys to this team to having success, accomplishing internal goals? Because there's only so many questions you'll have answered when you practice against each other. But you're going to have some questions, I'm sure, going into the season. You're curious to find out that you can only find out facing other opponents. What are some of those questions and keys you're kind of intrigued about this team to find out about?
Yeah, what I do know is we've got really talented, kind, smart kids. When the rubber meets the road, how well do we compete, or do we get in our own way? Right. That's, I think, going to be the question. They're not soft. and they're good ball players. But I think there's a tendency with women sometimes to overthink, to stress about results, to worry about things that are too far down the road you can't control. So if they let us continue to pull them back to the present moment and control what's right in front of them, and they can get in a place where they are collectively, like, that's their common language, I think this is going to get really interesting really quick. It looks different than it's ever looked in a really long time, right? Like, we're pretty good on the mound. We can defend the ball. This isn't going to be the team. We're not going to beat people by 16, 17 runs, right? But we're going to win a lot of 2-1 ball games. We're going to win a lot of 3-2, right? Ball games. So that I'm excited about, but that does take a certain level of toughness, right? And a certain level of competitiveness. So Arizona State, actually, in athletics, we just hired Mark Strickland, who was the mental performance coach with the Oakland A's for a really long time, and made a family move, and we snapped him up when he had moved back to Phoenix, and he's working with the girls 3 times a week, and he's really, really good at what he does. Like, Mark is absolutely a blessing to us. The kids are invested in him and locked in. And I think his body of work certainly speaks for itself. So he's going to be, I think, a really important linchpin to the success of this season, right? And again, this being the foundation for the many years of, chasing natties and what comes next. But that'll be the question. Like, when it gets really, really tough, like, did you sacrifice? Did you grind? Are you confident? Do you believe? Or are we going to start to question? Right? Because once we start to question, you better hope I have enough, right, collective kids in that lineup that, we've got so many older kids. Nobody's got time for that. Like, there's no, like, the questioning, the unsurety. But full circle, right? That comes with, I think, a lot of us, like, pushing them past their limits in the fall. And we talk a lot about sacrifice, right? And this really special point in your life. And understand your why and all the things you're giving up. What are you doing it for? Right? Because if you're, again, like, you're chasing an IL or you're chasing a result or you're doing something because mom and dad want you to, I don't have time and I don't have energy for that. Right? This has to be about your internal level motivation, because you love to compete and you love to win and you love to be great at something, and let's go get it. And you love being a part of a team and you understand the value in those relationships. Like, those are really different things that we talk to the kids out, and hopefully we pretty much sorted out in the recruiting process. So isn't this crazy? Softball full circle.
Full circle, and it'll be full circle. We'll get before you know it. Well, season will get going, and we're looking forward to seeing your team. Megan Bartlett, Arizona State head coach, here joining us on In the Circle. Always a pleasure doing this with you, although I'm a little envious of your background there. We may have to settle, maybe in the future, do like a home and home where I do a show in your backyard there by
I
the
love
pool.
it.
You come to Orlando, I know, a lot on vacation. Maybe we sneak in on a pod interview, location in my backyard. Maybe do a home and
You know
home.
what? That's brilliant. I love that. We're going to do it.
All right, we'll worry about that down the road. In the meantime, Coach, enjoy it. Look forward to seeing your team, and thanks for always talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you.